Do you think we're taking ourselves a bit far too seriously when it comes to our well being? Do you think sometimes that even now in well being, we're stressing ourselves out? When I first met Romano, I was intrigued by what he does for his well being. He actually goes to kayak fishing. And I thought, well, if I was kayak fishing, there was nowhere near I'd be calm. So I wanted to know more from his lens. What does that mean? Romano is also a lawyer. He raises two wonderful girls. And so get his perspective as a dad, as a man who does take care of his well-being. I wanted to know how he approaches it. I'm intrigued what your thoughts are going to be after this. And even thinking about maybe, are we taking that well-being a little bit too seriously? And is there another way? Enjoy this week's episode.
Where you know what home is, but you also embrace the unknown.
You know where home is, but you also embrace the unknown. But was it always unknown for you?
No. For me, growing up, I grew up in a family where I think I'm very close to nature. I've always been close to nature. People would look at what I do as a child and they'd probably say, that's not normal. So my granddad, he was, rest his soul, he died 2023. He was my biggest sort of motivator. I strive to be as he is, or as he was, And we grew up in the bush. We were catching snakes and we were running after things like that, scorpions and whatever. And that's what we grew up with in South Africa as children. And other people were playing with, Action Man and whatever was available at the time. Of course, we were also doing normal things, but we preferred being out in the bush and camping and fishing. And that's where the love for fishing started, as we had a small little fishing hole down the road. We didn't even have money for fishing rods at that time. We would take these wooden poles, essentially, and we'd have thread, and we'd have these pins that you use for babies.
Yeah.
And we'd take that with earthworms when we go fishing the local fishing hole. So that's how that started, and that was with my granddad and my cousins and everyone. But yeah, I think it all just comes down for me to the love for nature. We would just always be, we'd always be in that, living in that experience.
It's amazing because South Africa, I think green, I think lush, I think bush, I think safari, I think all things green. Dubai, I think sand, I see buildings, and then I never thought they have safaris, I would say. I haven't done those. But then you spinned it on its head because you do something very interesting. And I wondered, for me, that was like your sense of well-being. When I remember listening to your story, you were very calm, when you explained it, but nowhere in my head did I feel calm when I heard what you're doing. So tell us, what is it that you do to calm and your sense of peace other than chasing scorpions?
I think for me, I think for everyone, they should have an outlet, be it playing golf, be it whatever it is. It's I always say we are corporate athletes, so we work most of the time, and we are very, very good at it, but we don't really focus on the mental health part of it. For me, I do kayak fishing. I've been fishing here since literally when I stepped into this country. We were fishing from the Corniche in Abu Dhabi as little kids, when that was still a thing, So that's how that started. Was we were literally fishing from the Corniche. We were fishing from all the areas we could be fishing from in the UAE when we were able to. We got a boat, and a little story. Actually, we had a boat when we just got here. It sank. We were out 22 kilometers with my dad, my brother, and my mom, and the boat actually sank. And we were in the ocean for 6 hours. We were picked up by a Russian cargo ship after we'd floated into the shipping line. And I had a bit of PTSD after that, but it didn't last very long because I embraced the ocean again, and we started fishing immediately after that. And the kayak fishing only started at probably around 2009. No, I'm lying. Probably about 2007, I'd say. So at that time, I I finished high school in 2005. I matriculated in South Africa, and then I was back and forth. And this is took a gap year or so, and came and stayed here, and we started the kayak fishing. But at that time, so you get different types of kayak fishing. You get obviously the one that everyone knows is with a paddle, where you're paddling. Then you get a pedal drive where you're kicking. And at that time, there were no pedal drives. It was just normal paddling. And I had a small little Malibu kayak. I can't remember the model, but I was just fishing, just paddling and just trawling and just catching different species just with lures. I had no idea. I was doing drop shot and casting and jigging and stuff, but
okay, you got it back. You got to give me some English words on these.
Sure.
I'm not a big fisher. I eat fish.
No worries.
So tell me, backtrack. You just dropped it in there like it's not a big deal. Your whole family was stranded in the ocean, and you got picked up?
Yeah, so I don't really talk about it much. I think I've mentioned it once actually at the meeting we attended, you and I. This is last year, the year before, and people were flabbergasted when they found out. But I was 10, and we had purchased a boat. It was our first outing. We went out fishing, and the seas were especially rough that day. And I remember the bilge pump wouldn't work. So the bilge pump's supposed to, if there's any water in it, it'll pump it out of the boat. So the hull of the boat and the insides, and that wouldn't work. And it just started taking water on, and it kept taking water on. And before we knew it, we were in the water with a big canister of water, and that's it, life jackets, and the flares wouldn't work. So nothing went right that day. And I mean, thank God. I mean, I was, how old was I? I was 9 or 10, and my brother must have been about 6. And we were in the water. We were in the water, and we were floating. And first, you kind of compose yourself, and then you try and make plans. And we went over one of the big swells, and we could see in the distance there was a buoy. And we started swimming slowly but surely. And I was a very good swimmer. I've always been a very good swimmer. So I was fine with it. That's fine with me, but not everyone was. So, I think as well, knowing now what I knew then, I thought, okay, well, we swam all the way to the shipping lane. No, we didn't. We were taken by the grace of God. The currents took us into the shipping lane. When that current kicks up and you've got low tide or high tide and it's pushing in or pushing out, you cannot swim against that current. There's no way in hell you can swim against that current as an average swimmer, especially at the age of 9 or 6, or even if you're not a good swimmer. And I know that now because having kayak fished everywhere, if you don't know what you're doing and you don't time the tides correctly in a mangrove or in an area where the tides push out, where there's a channel, you will be pushed out. You can drown. You can come into serious harm. And at this time as well, in the 90s, when we were fishing, when you go to the fish souk, when the souk still existed at that time, I don't know if it still does. We had normal souks everywhere. The original souk was still in Abu Dhabi. The fish souk was still there. You would walk through there and you'd see some very impressive fish in the market. You'd see sharks. You'd see a lot of stuff. We were still fishing and we were catching sailfish at that time. Many, many, many sailfish, which you don't do today. So the sea life at that time was much more, I would say there was a wider variety. So the possibility, but you don't think about it when you're in the water. You don't want to think about that. You don't want to think about sharks and everything else. And I mean, that came to fruition last year, March, when this is right before I decided to start the channel as well, the kayak fishing channel. I just got the new kayak and I was out in the water and I was fishing and I caught a bull shark. I think I showed you the video as well.
We're going to share it with everyone. But the reason why I'm smiling is because the word is kayak in this whole thing. All right. The word is kayak. It's not a yacht. It's not a big boat. It's a kayak. So when you said kayak fishing, I caught a shark. And I was like, did I hear that correctly? I remember doing a double take on this one. I was like, kayak and double shark. And all I could see was Fred Flintstone. If I was a Fred Flintstone or Wilma, I would have been turned over underneath trying to pull that up. because and I don't fish, so that's why I was like, okay, this has to be very interesting. And how does that give you well-being? Because that gives not doesn't give me well-being hearing the story.
So for me, it gives me a sense of when I was a child and I was free. Uh, when I lost my granddad, I decided to start the channel because I needed a distraction. To be honest,
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to make a video of this on my channel, but I don't want to get too deep about it and too because it's difficult. So for me, I needed a distraction. My family's over there. I haven't been back since I wasn't there for the funeral. I wasn't there when he passed away, and I needed
Yeah.
a distraction. So, and at that point, I mean, we all work. We try to support our families and all that. For me, I'm a single working dad, and I'm just trying to do my best. So you're still working. You still got to keep your mind fresh, and to take the edge off. I don't drink. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm not into that. I don't go out weekends and hang out and go to pubs or anything. I'm
Yeah.
edging 40. I don't want to be doing that. My life is my kids and my wife and working. And the only way I find that I get sort of out and take out, and I can exercise as well. You're exercising hard and you are getting fresh air and you're getting the salt water. I think there's a sense of, the prehistoric sort of hunter-gatherer feeling that you get as a man when you're out there doing what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sense of achievement when I'm catching a fish, and I can. It sounds silly, but when you're catching, say, a kingfish, and you're filleting it, and you take those fillets home, and you can feed your family from what you've caught. It's a very, very basic sense of achievement that I get anyway. It's being out there working hard to get what I can, and then you take it home. And if you don't get anything, you look in the horizon in the mornings and you just think how beautiful it is when you see the sunrise before anyone else because everyone else is sleeping in.
Yeah.
And that's what I get out of it. It's for me, it's a calm as well.
So it's almost like it's almost like for you, your sense of taking care of you, your mentally, your physically, everything has to have meaning or purpose.
Yeah, I think the purpose for me is to come home, and I think most dads would appreciate this as well. Is if you come home in the afternoon from work and you are tired and you had a long day and clients breathing down your neck, and you walk home and you get out of your car and your 5-year-old runs to you with joy.
Mm-hmm.
It means that you are doing something right. So for me, the purpose is obviously to make my children happy, but also I can't keep them happy if I don't look at myself or look after myself. And I think that's the thing that they don't focus on a lot on that because we just suppose we're in this machine where we're just cogs and we have to keep going. But you've got to focus on yourself, as I said in the start, whether it's golf, whether it's whatever you do, you've got to do something that's outside. And I do like being by myself. I always have. I don't mind being by myself. I think if I had to be on these survival shows that people complain about the simple things, I'd probably do quite well because I don't mind. I think you got to be comfortable being with yourself. And the majority of people are not comfortable being with themselves.
I think that's a good point as well. One thing that I was thinking as you were also sharing just now was sometimes I feel like we're being forced to meditate. You're being forced to do well-being in this certain direction. Even though I do my meditations, I much prefer going for a walk, and I like nature as well. But this almost like forcefulness, I feel like sometimes we end up forcing our well-being. But you're telling me, no, I do it my way, and this is my way. But is that so that there is that pressure in the well-being space now? Because there's a lot for men right now. I find a lot of males struggle with their role, as it were, as the world has evolved.
Yeah.
Share me through that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think I agree with you on that point. I think there's so much confusion. I mean, if we look at today, and I don't mean to offend anyone at any point in time, and I think that's the problem is we're also worried about offending everyone around us with what we are doing, and we're sorry for what we as men are doing, and what we are and who we are. We can't really change that at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
All I know is that I'm working to support my family. I'm doing my best,
Mm-hmm.
and in doing so, I'm not always going to understand what the new generation is talking about when they're referring to slang, or when they're talking about what is happening around the world. Or, I see some of these things and I have no idea. I'm still into ACDC, for God's sake, so, so I'm still a rocker. I'm still I'm not hating Nickelback. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I think, there's a lot of confusion as to what a man's role should be in today's society, and I don't think you should lose track of it. I think inherently we are providers. We want to be providers, all of us, and we should be also proud of what we've achieved. Those of us who are really doing our best to try and make ends meet, don't feel bad because everyone has a different opinion about what you're doing, and just keep doing what you're doing. Keep going. Don't stop. That's the biggest thing I can say. That's what my granddad used to say. Is just, one day you wake up and you feel like absolute garbage. Just hold out. Tomorrow's going to be better. It is. If you take a breath, 1 second you feel like your whole world's falling apart and everything's just absolutely terrible. Just hold on one day. The next day you feel fine. So
I can understand that. I agree with that, but I also find, and maybe I don't understand it because I'm not a male, but I often see that because there's this sense of I like to provide, because I do think it's not I have to provide. For some people, yes. There's also I like to provide. Now, with women accelerating and they're providing as well because economic changes and everything, I often find that men, when they are struggling and they feel like the sense of I have to provide, or I should, I'm providing, and difficult emotions hit, that there's a silence that goes with it. They don't speak about it. They won't talk about it. And the expectancy now is let's talk about it. Because if we speak about it, that way we work things through. So if you had to say, you've gone through PTSD in some degree, you've worked through it because you're back in the water, I would comfortably say. You do pick up sharks here and there, and you go, you're working, you raise 2 daughters as well, and you are in a family with female energy. How do you navigate the emotional side of things?
For me, if we're looking at, for example, what you're saying is true. First of all, I agree with you. I think if we're looking, for example, at policemen during the 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever it might be, 90s even,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them had endured going through trauma, seeing people being shot, going to scenes of accidents and things like that. And they were war. We had people who went to war, and they would come back, and we still have that to this day. And people didn't focus on male mental health much at all. They were just sort of put aside and said, deal with it, you're a man. And we see that to this day. I know someone as well who's gone through it and was just struggling. But I think with a strong support system, and I'm talking about family as well, not all of us are privileged enough to have an extended family that can support us. So, look towards friends and that. But if you have a strong support structure, and I'm not saying they should carry you, but they should at least be there to listen to you and support you. I'm very thankful for my wife. For us, it's us. It's true what they say. Behind every man, there's a strong woman, and that's true. I don't think without her support, and she was there when I was doing my studies, and I had nothing. So if you have someone who's supporting you through all that, and when you're poor, when you're rich, when you're sick, that's literally the person that is always there for you.
Yeah.
And the same for my family. It was always like that. Um, and it's still like that to some extent. Is even though they're over in South Africa, my extended family, I know that if I'm in trouble, I can call them and they'd be there immediately. But for men, yeah, the lines are very blurry these days as to what can I do, what can I not do, and um, I'm all for female empowerment, as I said, because I've got the two girls at home. I want them to grow up to be strong and responsible and have high integrity. I think integrity is the main thing that you should be focusing on. People don't.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that counts for everything. But it's difficult to know and understand where you as a man should be fitting in when you see all these different views from all over the world. You've got people who are not sure even what gender is, for instance. And when we're looking at that,
it is a big topic.
And again, not wanting to offend anyone, but I think we're all entitled to our own beliefs. And as a man in this society, like how do you define that? I mean, I'll put that to you. How do you actually try and not offend anyone by just doing what you're doing? And I think the only way I can look at it is just to say that I'm just living for my children at the moment and for my little family, and I'll focus on what's happening tomorrow and perhaps the next 5 years. And I'll focus on taking out any sort of frustration on my outlet. This corporate athlete syndrome that we've got going on needs to stop at some point as well,
The corporate pressure, you would say?
Yes. So I would say I saw someone else wrote about it, but for instance, you wake up in the morning, you eat your breakfast, you get in the car, you sit for an hour. Mm-hmm. You go to work, you sit for 9 hours, 10 hours. You get in the car, you sit for another hour. What do you do when you get home? You sit for hours and you watch TV. So what do? You're sitting and you're not doing much. So we're corporate athletes because we professional. We were sitting. We're so good at that. But actually getting out there and just experiencing life, that's just not what we do anymore.
It's you. I think of your kayak because you are with the basics. It's just you, yourself, and the kayak is long, right? So you're working with the utmost basics, and then you have to take the outer environment into account, from what I understand. So you said you take the water into account, you take your movement into account, but also I believe when you're starting to pull, you probably have to have a certain amount of steadiness internally to pull whatever you're pulling out from the water, be it small or big, right?
Yeah.
And you have a line. And I think when you're describing the world or the well-being, is that it's this play of you're going out and you're fishing. You're going out and you're catching on to the world, right? You're providing into the world, but you have these restraints. So rather than avoid it, you work with it.
Yeah, and exactly.
Going back to what you were just saying about not knowing what to say, when to say it, to me, your life kind of describes it, because you just have to know when to go with the flow and read the place. And when is it that you stop and just appreciate that sunset or that sunrise, sorry.
Yeah, just enjoy the moment. I mean, that's the one thing. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but when I lost my granddad, and I'm still going through that, I think we all are. When you lose someone, you go through the sense of how mortal you are, that sort of how quick life goes by, and all these things, these feelings you have. And I think just enjoy it. Just have fun. The kayaking for me is an outlet. And I enjoy it, to be honest. Every time I get a bite on the line, it's an adrenaline rush as well, because you don't know what you're going to get. So that's the fun in it.
Every time you get a bite, you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, it's so much fun, and on the kayak especially, because it's not like in a boat where you've got the motors and it's noisy and you can do whatever, you can leave the steering wheel. No, you're right. You've got to see where you're going. You got to predict the current. If I'm sitting and I'm busy catching live bait, for instance, I'm sitting with my nose into the current, and I'm slowly but surely pedaling so that I don't drift away from where the spot is with the bait is. So I'm jigging, I'm going where I am, I'm keeping my tracking so that I don't go off route. I'm checking the currents. And when you do get a bite, you've got to focus on reeling that in as well and getting it into the live well as quick as possible. So there's all these different factors. And I think it's also good for your neuromuscular function. It's good because you've got to multitask. And let's be honest, everyone makes fun of men because we can't multitask. So I think for me, it's good for your brain. It's good exercise. It's just good to be out there.
It's really funny you're describing that, and I think you got the answer, because when you said, when you have to talk something like about gender and you don't know how to talk about it, right? I just think however you just described the process of fishing is exactly what you go into, because it's like you're going into that conversation. You don't know how to be or anything, but you're looking at the room. So you're looking at the tide of the room. You have to look at everything. But what I love out of this whole thing is you're saying, well, actually, you should just enjoy it. Enjoy the whole process.
I think so. I did a podcast a while ago, and I think we all look for all these deeper meanings, and there's deeper meaning in a lot of things. There's a lot of it. But at the end of the day, it's fun. It really is. It's just nice to get out there. And obviously, don't go out there not knowing what you're doing. It's not. I wouldn't say go out there without a life jacket. Don't take. I've seen a lot of mishaps, and thank God it's not happened to me. But I've seen kayaks being flipped. I've seen people stranded and cracked holes and all these things. It's because we're not having the right safety gear. And it's the same with anything in life. Don't just go out there and just assume you can go 20 kilometers out and go catch sailfish or something. You still have to do your preparation. I did a video on that as well. As you've got to do your prep for anything, right? I mean, as a podcaster, you're not going to come on the show or host the show without knowing your host's name or without any of these things.
You're doing the grounding work, yes.
Yeah, so start off slow and just sort of progress. And men, what we do is, for me anyway, I don't know if all men are like this, is I'll have a hobby every 2-3 years, and then I'll sort of get bored of it and I'll shift on to the next thing.
Okay, so it's not just me then.
Yeah, so for me, that's what it was like. And if I told you all the hobbies I had throughout the years, and I mean, some of them still stick around, I probably wouldn't say, but it's also, I have a fascination with, I've always collected as a young boy, when you grow up in the bush. I got handed my first pocket knife by my granddad as well. A little pocket knife. It was made of wood. And ever since then, I was collecting pocket knives. And to this day, I still collect pocket knives and I keep them. And there's a tradition when you receive a pocket knife, you give someone a coin in it. So we kept up that tradition as well as, whenever and that hobby. Yeah, so it's small little things like that. And after that, I got into something else. And then you get bored of that and you move on to the next best thing. But eventually your hobby is sort of, it becomes a hobby which you do when you got the time, because my main focus is, I love going home to the kids. I absolutely just love being there, the good, the bad, all of that stuff. So for me, the main thing is getting home and getting out of my car and just seeing the little one running towards me, just absolutely happy. So that's the biggest thing. I think if you're working towards something as a man, especially, for me, the definition of man and gender and all that stuff, I think, without getting too political, it's quite clear for me what it is. And I'm conservative. I'm still coming back from, all of these things. So I understand what it is, and I think a lot of people have become a little bit more confused because of what's going on in the world. And I think COVID has a lot to do with it as well. COVID had a massive influence on all of our mindsets. Yeah, not specifically with regards to the confusion of that, but everything else, it seems, has become more complicated. Everything in life, obviously this isn't, because we can converse virtually, but with everything else, it seems like there's an agenda behind everything. Even though there's an argument for it, it's because someone has an agenda behind it. And I don't really read into it too much. I don't want to. I'd rather just get on with it, and as you said before, just have fun fishing and just sort of get on,
I have to say I didn't realize that it could have been COVID. That's one thing you've really got me thinking here. I found, whenever I move different countries, I always have to lean into the culture because the cultures are different, right?
For sure.
And so when I came here, I remember so far I know two people somebody told me, contact these two people. And I contacted them, and right off the bat, I'm used to let's meet, get to know me face to face, and then see whatever comes through that. But I contacted these people for that intention, and the next minute I knew it was like, okay, so what do you want from me? What is the collaboration? And I felt like the sense of overwhelm and taking away the very beauty of conversing. And I think conversations now, when you're speaking, for me, I think the art of just having a conversation has somewhat diminished or lost its value to some extent. It's transactional, very transactional.
I agree with you. I think even looking at other shows, not yours specifically, but if I look at other shows, no one's just talking, just talk, just have a conversation, just get out there and just speak to someone.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't prep for this at all, this whole show or anything, to be honest. I'm here to talk about kayak fishing. So, for me, I'm just here just talking, and I think that is true. And that's also why I say with COVID, what happened is people got accustomed to Zoom and to whatever, Microsoft Teams and all these things. And before that, we had when we still have it, is everyone, when you're walking around, people are always on their phones. Like, no one's actually looking up. And that's what I miss about the 90s. And that's what I miss about, to some extent, being that child where you're waiting to steal the remote control so you can play your TV game. Or, because you're taking turns, or running outside because you're actually out there doing stuff. And now we've got 5-year-olds, 4-year-olds, whatever it is, sitting on tablets. And no, I mean, that's not how it should be. If your child's addicted to a tablet at that age, and look, I'm not saying my kids don't have tablets, and I think I miss the time where we were conversing, we were talking, we were gossiping. I mean, that's how life is. If you come to a small town, and there's always gossip, there's always something to say or to know about someone. So I miss that feeling where there's more, and what you're saying is right, is, I also meet with a lot of people, and then there's always a sales pitch. There's always if I told you that, and then it's followed by, no, you want to see that there's substance behind a person before I deal with them in business. I want to know, okay, well, this person, this is who he is, and this is what he does. So what you do is, I'm a lawyer. Who I am is, I'm a father and a husband. Yeah. So you've got to separate those two. And it sounds cliche, but if you do business with someone, you've got to know that it's not just a sales pitch. What you see from someone is the substance behind what you're meeting.
Yeah, I find it's very important to know. It sounds really cliche as well, but like when Simon Sinek says, your why. It's really nice to know someone's why, what makes them do what they do, because you also understand where they're thinking and where they're coming from. And that, for me, I feel, which I do think at the crux of conversations is missing, and also gives a certain anxiousness, is that the trust in human beings is missing, trust in a conversation. Because there's that transaction, as you're saying, and you're speaking about it. I'm like, yeah, I can see that, because we're already on guard with, get me what I need to get, and let's not waste time. But actually, it's not wasting time. It's that why. Once you have the trust, then the things are easier to navigate. Trust is still very important, I feel. And I sometimes wonder if that's the missing key and the stress of it all.
That's definitely. I mean, obviously, if you want to do business, but let's get back to that. If you want to do business with someone, you should know who you're dealing with, not just looking at business history, but if you know someone, and I wouldn't say intimately, but if you know who they are, where they're coming from, you know what their motivation is in life. You know what their intention is, and you know why they're doing what they're doing. That's what it comes down to for me, is when I'm working with someone, I can immediately tell, and it's a bit of an art as well, as you can tell who you want to do business with and why. So if if it's someone who I've heard the pitch a million times from, that sells the business immediately without saying, this is, what do you do? Just even the small talk goes a long way. And I think people don't put enough emphasis on small talk. And small talk shouldn't just be small talk. It should be something where you're actually interested in getting to know someone. It's not just a sales pitch. It's trying to find out who someone is and where they're coming from. And unfortunately, a lot of these, especially today, I think, and I always say, what they don't teach in schools are things that they should be teaching, life skills, such as how to write up your resume, how to do these things, how to do your own accounting, how to actually fix your car, all these things, and how to speak with people. These
now
things should actually be
ChatGPT is
taught in
here,
school.
apparently.
Yeah, and I mean, I received something from someone a while ago where I instructed them to do something, and I received it back, and it was clearly done by ChatGPT. And I thought, okay, well, where are we in the world? It wasn't fact checked. It wasn't done correctly. And this is where we are. It started with the Google. You know where it started? It started with obviously the phones, where we didn't have to memorize phone numbers anymore. I'm sure when you were young, you knew about 20, 30 numbers off by heart. How many do we know now?
I still know my own home number that I started with.
Yeah. I mean, but how many do we know now? That's the question, because our phones do it for us.
Not at all.
Exactly. And then it started with Google, or Yahoo before Google, and all of these things. And we had search engines for everything. Now we've got the Google generation they don't need to work hard. They don't need to do that. And now it's turned into AI, which is taking over everything as well. And it's taking away that human factor even more, which we were talking about before, where people are already not interacting in person. They're on Zoom, they're on Microsoft Teams. We were saying that it's a sales pitch, and now we've got AI coming into the mix as well. So how socially awkward is the generation going to be, and how misguided will they be, if at all? Or will they be more socialized than we think? I don't know the answers to these, but I don't know if AI is going to be the best thing for the world when it comes to interactions with people and actually working.
Okay, so I got an article yesterday. I just have to share this. There was an interview Mark Zuckerberg has done, right?
Yeah.
He sat down, and he reckons that the way to get out of the epidemic of loneliness is to have an AI avatar chatbot. And I was like, no, I don't think so, because because ChatGPT does do a lot of confirmation bias. It'll soothe you. It'll say, yes, you are right. This is how you're feeling, because it's like, let me test it out, because people are using it for therapy now. It's become the number one reason to use it, which is pretty scary. And I'm like, here's somebody who knows he's going to be heard, has this responsibility to think things through, and because people are going to listen to this and they're actually going to take it up. And I think that at that point, I'm like, where is our social responsibility to that? Because it's on the well-being. And there's a lot of struggle with how to speak and that awkwardness that you're talking about. And then it got me thinking, and even now as you're speaking, is one of our greatest gifts to actually do the things that is hard, because that helps us grow the most. For example, like you're saying, conversations. In order to overcome awkward conversations, isn't it going, it goes back to your kayak fishing. Isn't it going with even when the tide is whatever it is, you're only able to understand how to read the waves or the water if you're in it. You would not have understood if you just had textbook or you had ChatGPT for it.
Yeah, look, I agree with you. I think if we're using if we're using comparisons, for me, when I was younger, when we just moved here, I was an Afrikaans kid. I didn't have any friends, and I threw myself into reading. I was an avid reader. And one of the comparisons that Wilbur Smith came up with in one of his books was to compare life to a river, and to say that life is like a river. It's got tributaries, it's got the source, it's got all of these little branches that spread out. Sometimes it ebbs, sometimes it flows, and sometimes it comes to a standstill, but at some point it's always there. So, yeah, I think that's how we should be dealing with life as well. As you got to just deal with it. The same with if you're speaking to people. It's not the same. You're not going to get a hug from someone if you need psychological help, but at least that person's going to be there and they're going to look you in the eyes and give you one-on-one assistance with something. And that human interaction is what I think, is missing in today's world. We've got people with, and what you were saying before is true as well. Sales pitches, people are already. So if you're trying to sell a business, for instance, and you're talking about something, that person's not really listening to you. They're already thinking about what they're going to be saying next.
So true.
And that's where we're at, is people are not actively listening or taking in what you're saying per se. They are already thinking of what they are going to say next. And that's the problem we face, is there's not really, and yes, there's conversation, but it's not really there. It's more superficial, just selling. And it's the same with everything else. AI is, it's not personal, is it?
I know. I'm like, when Mark Zuckerberg said that, I'm like, but you are still going to know that you're talking to a non-human. And when you know that
from someone, you know what I'm saying? That's coming from someone who he's become this little idol in the world as well, which I think idols should not exist. I don't think anyone should be made an idol. No one. Everyone should be the same. I think it's important when you grow up like I did, where you go from South Africa, where you see the extremely impoverished, and then you come to Dubai and you see the extremely rich, to understand that all these people are still people. I will greet the street sweeper. I will speak to the sheikhs that I know. You don't treat anyone different. And it's the same with Zuckerberg, for instance. Like, he's this idol that's been put on a pedestal, and there's a lot of other idols. I'm using them as an example, obviously. Just because he says something is so, it doesn't make it right. AI is, look, it's good. It's got its good parts as well. Obviously, I'm not doubting that. We use it a lot as well when we are doing things, and you incorporate it. You should. I embrace it as well, but don't let it become the staple, the be all and end all at all.
I think it goes back to who navigates it, and something to be said about this idling. That sometimes when we idle people, we stop actually giving ourselves, the word that you used earlier was integrity, and I think also dignity. We stop valuing our own internal dignity, because if we did value our own internal dignity, I don't think we would be idling people. We would understand maybe what they're saying, why they're saying it, and have an opinion about it or perspective.
Yeah, please.
So when it goes back to like people feeling awkward and not talking, to me, I think that's a lot of the mental stress. When people talk to me about mental well-being, I actually think it has a lot to do with the inability or the struggle to communicate with others, because we're so concerned how people are going to view us or see us, because we're measuring perpetually. We're perpetually measuring to others. And so why I go back to what you started with, which was the kayak fishing, is there's that sense of being alone with yourself. Because even when you go to the gym is really nice, it's really great, but you've chosen nature, you've chosen getting out into the sea, but taking that risk too. You're going back, you face once that gave you a bit of trauma, and not just a bit, it gave you the PTSD, but you also went through it back to make sense of completions. You're back in the sea. And I think there's something to be said about that we should not wait or avoid the difficulties. And to me, when I was talking about mental health well-being for men, sometimes it feels certain areas is avoided. It's just like, I don't want to deal with it. But actually what you're saying is, well, just turn and you got to go through it, but also have a sense of joy to go through it, or a sense of fun
things.
with it.
It's the little things. If you're going through a tough time, try and there's a term for it as well as anhedonia. Is you don't find joy in
Anhedonia?
anything. Yeah. So you don't find joy in anything. So if you're an anhedoniac, it means that you don't find joy in anything that you do. I don't know the exact definition. I can't get it off by heart, but that's essentially it. Is you've got to find, and that's what I found is you go through yes, you go through dips in life. You go through, and everyone has them. We all have our backgrounds where we've gone through trauma, or we've gone through whatever it is we're going through right now. But you've got to find pleasure in the little things. Find pleasure in what. If you did something as a child, think about what you did as a child and try and copy that, because that's what I do. I still envision the little fishing hole, with sticks and thread. And I use that anywhere I go in the world. I will not go anywhere where there's no fishing. I said that to my wife. She laughs at me. So any form of fishing, whether it's ice fishing or kayak fishing or shore fishing, whatever it may be, it's my sense of peace. When I was in South Africa, I was doing, because we were inland. I was from Pretoria, so we were doing bass fishing, trout fishing up in some of the parts as well, fly fishing. We were doing shore fishing, and then when we go on holiday to the ocean, we'd be doing shore fishing, and we'd do offshore. So you've got to find purpose you've got to find joy in the little things. You do. That's the biggest thing that I would say to anyone is, if you're going through a tough time, just look at the little things. Find a sense of achievement in the small little things that you achieve. Whether you go out and you catch nothing, which I must be honest, this season was terrible on the kayak. It was a terrible season. I caught one kingfish and a whole bunch of sharks, which I didn't even record because it was just a terrible season. And I lost a whole bunch of fish. But the sense of achievement I got from just getting out there to actually say, I'm getting up at 4:15 and I'm putting the kayak on the trailer on the roof rack. I'm driving to wherever it be, Fujairah, Dubai, and I've made this step. And to actually step out, and even that is an achievement. And then to be on the water, to say, okay, I'm here now. It's if you catch nothing, so what? At least you're there and you're trying. And that should be the motto for everyone.
Okay, so I don't know whether to end it with this question or the next question. So I'm going to ask it to you. Have you ever enjoyed laughing at yourself at some of the things you've done? And which one was it?
Yeah, I mean, I do all the time. I was filming recently when I was on the kayak as well, and as I hooked up, I started singing loud, because so in my spare time I play guitar as well. It's the other stress thing that I do is I play guitar and I sing. I used to do it quite a bit, perform here and there. So it came out and I was singing full on, but it was just me in the ocean, so no one gives a damn, right? So and I had to stop recording and I had to record again because I don't think that I was just laughing at myself. It's the same sort of thing. So I laugh at myself all the time. I'll do something, I'll hear something and I'll respond to it loud. I talk to myself all the time as well, by the way. I think maybe I'm a little bit nuts.
No, I do too as well.
Literally, I've got my office door closed because I talk to myself too much. And I don't want people to think I'm losing it. So, but I laugh at myself all the time. I think that's also part of, if you're okay with your own company. I think people who they talk to themselves all the time. Anyway, I laugh at myself quite a bit, I must say.
I'm so used to talking. I can get very hard on myself, so I talk to myself. But then I also realize now to pivot that and start having fun and poking fun at myself. Like, oh, here we go again, Kirti. Here's another time, And I find that it does give me better stress relief than sitting quietly and trying to figure it out and, sit quietly with myself. Sometimes I find just speaking it out loud, it comes out of my system. I don't know,
Yeah. No, I agree. You've got to laugh at yourself, and you got to teach your kids to laugh at themselves as well. And there's a fine line between teaching your kids to laugh at themselves, or if they're being made fun of, for instance. The same with yourself is, you laugh at yourself and you allow others to laugh at you when it is funny. But you've got to teach that as well.
All right. So last question then. If I had to If you wanted any of us to walk away with that one thing that could make such a difference, that one reflection, that one thought, that one insight, one realization, what would you like to leave behind?
I had this conversation with my wife as well. As if you think about it, you can think about it on two sides. You can think about it on the very depressing side, which is in 2 generations, will someone remember your name? Do you remember your great-grandparents and what they did and who they were?
Mm-hmm.
No, we don't. We don't remember any of that stuff because it gets lost. So the one thing I can say, or the little bit of advice I can give, is enjoy it now. And it sounds cliche again, but just enjoy your time that you have now. Enjoy the little things. Find pleasure in the little things. And if you are at the point where you're going through a tough time, just think about every bridge you've crossed. Because every bridge you've crossed has led you to this moment. That's the only thing I can say. Find that one thing that lets you escape. For me, it's kayak fishing, and it's my kids, and it's guitar or whatever it is. And if you get bored of it, then throw it away and get something new. You're not bound by anything. You're not bound by rules or laws. You've got to do this hobby for 10 years. Or no, if you're bored, start with the next thing. That's and Christopher McCandless, he was. I don't know if you ever watched Into the Wild or ever read the book. So Christopher McCandless also said that man's spirit, we essentially new experiences. We have to live on new experiences, and that's it. You've got to enjoy the new experiences. You've got to live according to that as well. But anyway, you should check the movie out, I think, first, and then
Into the Wild.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Some of the quotes and so on. I think you'd enjoy it. Well, when you got time, I'll tell you about the escapades with my granddad when we were little. As I said, that was the motivation of starting the channel. As I was going through a really, really tough time, when we lost him, he was my idol. He was like my whole world, the only man that I ever looked up to, and he just died, and I wasn't there. So I started the fishing channel just sort of as a distraction, and then it just grew into so much more. And I think when I make decisions as well, and I think all of us should think about that, is you should think of whether you're going to make them proud if they're looking down on you. So that's where it's at for me as well.
Why do you, I don't know if you have time, but that one is very interesting because I have the same thing with my dad because he passed away. But my friend told me when I was leaving recently, when I was coming here, I've taken a massive risk. And I was like, I don't want to do this. And he said, I think you should need to stop living your dad's legacy because after all, it's your legacy. So I wonder where, like you said, if they're going to make me proud, what does that really mean?
I think for me, if I look at the human being, he was the perfect example of what a person should be. And I know a lot of people say that, but he got married to my grandmother when he was 18 and she was 16. And they've been married for over 60, or they were married for over 60 years when he passed away. He was an elderly in the church. He never said anything bad about anyone. He never raised his hand to his kids. He was just the perfect example of whatever God you believe in, what you should be as a person. So it's a very, very high bar to set. And I know I will never, never live up to that. And I know that you would probably feel the same with your dad, if you want to make them proud. Some people just set the bar extremely high. But what you can do is you can live your life according to the morals and things that they've set out. So at least remember all these things. I tell when my daughter gets into bed, my little 5-year-old, I've been telling her the stories of when we used to go out in the bush. Every night she goes to bed, to the point where she wants to know about, when my granddad got hit by lightning 3 times in his life, by the way. And I'll tell her about that. Yeah. So he was a nature conservationist, and that's why we got the love for the bush and for the animals. Is he was a nature conservationist at the Kruger National Park and at Pilanesberg and all these places. And we could call us to go get snakes out of people's houses and monitor lizards and even a porcupine at one point. So that's why we got the love for what we got, and I try to teach my kids about that. I still take, when we were living in the Mark Hills too, I would take her on night walks in the desert. I'd show her the geckos we catch, and I'd show her all these things. Um, so
Really?
it's also, you've got to live close, because that's not going to be there forever. None of this stuff is going to be there, and that's what I learned in South Africa as well. All the little areas where we used to go, it's all developments now. None of the bush is there anymore. And slowly but surely, the desert's going to follow the same.
I find it very sad, but yeah, I understand that one. Because it's a
But
shame,
anyway,
because I was raised in Curacao. It's an island. And when
yeah,
it was not a lot of roads, a lot of bush. You'd have to go through the bushes to get to the other side, to the beach. And then the beach was
yeah,
just, you just jump off the water and there's sea apples. The water was crystal blue in those
yeah,
days as well. And so
yeah,
you kind of, I do miss it. I miss that sense of simplicity. I enjoy
yeah.
it, and I
I can
yearn
imagine.
for it now. Yeah. When I'm
I can
back now.
imagine.
Well, on that note, I'm going to thank you. And it was fun. I learned about kayak fishing. I learned about looking at it from a different perspective, but I also learned about how it is really well-being is finding the joy in the things that don't actually have to have a purpose or anything. It's just having joy. And
Yeah,
that's part of well-being. So thank
no,
you.
you're welcome.
And that was it. So, are you ready to dive underneath the surface of who you are and what is your well-being? When I was listening to this episode, while it is focused towards the men's well-being, it had me thinking about my own well-being and going and diving deeper underneath the deep oceans of within myself and discover actually what brings me joy, what brings me that sense of purpose, just like we spoke about in the episode. But I'd love to hear what your thoughts are around it. And one of the best ways you can do that, if you haven't yet, is join my Substack newsletter. That is not just a newsletter, but it's also about building a community. And I do give some extra insights behind the scenes of all that we discuss here on the podcast. Do join. And I look forward to catching up with you over there as well. Have a good one. Take care.